Hello, folks. Welcome back to another edition of SHU Outdoors. My name is Mick. I'm your host, and I would like to introduce you to the newest member of my family.
I'd like to introduce you to the newest member of my
guys.
family. My wife and I, man, we're well known for taking in strays, and we get a thing for black cats. This will be our sixth black cat. Everybody considers them bad luck.
Yeah.
But we love them and take them in because
For sure, right? I had intended to do a different episode today, part two of my encounters with Jackie, right? One of the most rawest prisoners I ever met in any prison I was ever in. And when I met him, he was an old man, but his reputation well preceded him, and he was still thugged out at 75 years old. But I decided to do a slightly different episode. Right now, I'm going to come back after this episode and finish that second part up. First of all, I just want to say thanks to all my subscribers and all the people who watch my videos. I'm very grateful and humbled. So, I'm going to address the issue now. Nobody's really called me out for it. But with that said, I'm gonna go ahead out and just get out in front of it. You may see in this flask here, I rock a rebel flag, okay, and up here I got one also. Now I understand. I do actually understand why some people would have a problem with that, and some people may find it offensive. But I'm going to explain why I rock it and what it means to me, all right? Those 10 years that I was in federal prison, they drugged me real hard, man. And I got lucky to make it through that. That was like a living nightmare, all right? I'm sharing certain things with you now on YouTube that I would have never spoke on while I was doing the time. Okay, so, you're getting a different me than the person that was actually doing the time. But not only did they drag me hard, man, all right? Every individual, every staff member, every person that gave me a tray with one little scoop of rice on it, knowing I didn't have no commissary and I was in the hole locked down and had been locked down for months. Every time they put somebody in the cell with me in the hole they knew I had problems with, and I had to get them as soon as the handcuffs come off, and I had to make sure my handcuffs come off first. Every time they sent me to a prison that they knew that I had beef there and I had to go out on the yard and get busy and defend myself, the person that did it to me, man, was rocking a uniform with an American flag on it. All right. And that puts me in a position, man, that, even though I consider myself actually a very patriotic American, I have the utmost respect for the United States Constitution. So in my heart, I consider myself actually a very patriotic American. But I'm not the kind of American that goes out of their way to treat their fellow citizens horrible. Everybody that had a part in, I'm not saying, and let's clear this up, I'm not saying I didn't deserve the 10 years that I got in federal prison for doing what I did, okay? And I've already explained, it was bank robberies and whatnot in New York City, so I've already told that story. But the moral is, I'm not saying that I didn't deserve to go to prison for what I did. Yeah, I admitted my guilt and I accepted the 10 years. So that's not really the issue. The issue is how I was treated while I was in prison. It was inhumane, and I've seen it happen to many, many, many people. I did about 2+ years in the hole, and I know to the hardcore cons, 2 years in the hole, that ain't nothing. You know what I mean? One time I did 18 years in the hole standing on my head. That's how tough I was. Well, I tell you what, man, I did 2+ years in the hole. Okay, I caught a 101 shot. That's, in the feds, it's 100 series, 200 series, 300 series, and a 100 series, 100 is homicide. 101 is attempted. All right. Really, I was defending myself. Okay. And whatever happened, and they tried to get me in trouble like I was the initial bad guy, you know. And you're in a situation where you just got to like stay quiet about the whole shit, and whatever they saw on the video, that's what it is. You know what I mean? So that 2 years in the hole was very traumatic. And you got to understand, the facilities they were sending me to were not facilities where people had a vested interest in following the rules. Now, if you have like what they consider a nonviolent crime, and you land in a lower security facility, yeah, you could probably stay out of trouble if you make an attempt to and do programs and probably get time off your sentence and all that. But they got somewhere where you're not going to be able to stay out of trouble. It's called the United States Penitentiary. Now, you don't have to get in trouble every day, or you could definitely, stay out of the way, so to speak. But in a place like that, trouble is going to find you, okay? And despite your best efforts, something horrible is going to happen. You either be around it, see it, it's going to come at you. You just never know. So you have to be on a heightened state of alert constantly. They're really bad places, man. Okay, that's the moral of the story. And again, I'm not saying I didn't deserve to be in prison, man, but they drugged me real hard, man. And I'm a rebel, man. Okay, to me, that flag is like, I'm a son of the South. Even though I haven't lived in South Carolina in decades and never will again, that's my home state, and my people's from there. So I have to have some kind of pride in it, but I'm still mad at it for things it did to me when I was a kid. But you know what? What's done's done. But basically, that's my home state, and I ain't never going to 100% flip on it. Bottom line, I got it tatted on my back. So it put me in a bad situation, man, because on one hand, I consider myself a very patriotic American. On the other hand, I'm not rocking your flag no more, homie. Plus, you do things around the world that I don't agree with, okay? So, yeah, I'm a patriotic American, but I'm also a rebel to the heart, okay? And I understand that people don't want to deal with me or whatever, you know what I mean? Hey, it is what it is, but I got to stay true to myself, all right? And that's just the way it's got to be. So with that, I guess, yeah, that's just the way it's got to be, man. I said something on this program, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and I was really talking about American politicians. But the way it actually came out, when I went back and really looked at the video, the way it actually came out was I spoke about veterans, all right? And I said something I shouldn't have said, all right? Before I get into the official recount, I'm going to tell you a story, right? And it's relevant to, the issue at hand. I was living in New York City on 9/11, all right? When that first plane hit, we all thought it was like a horrible accident, because, people's in their apartments doing what they do. It's one of the rare times, like, everybody in the city came out in the streets, all right, after the first plane hit, We thought it was like, what the world, what just happened? That the part of that section of Manhattan down there is called Liberty Park City. That's kind of like the name of the neighborhood down there. I had some friends that lived down there. I wasn't down there at that time. I was living in the West Village, okay? And in the West Village, Washington Square Park, which NYU is like, Washington Square Park sits like right in the middle of what would be considered NYU territory. It's got the big arch, and the Fifth Avenue starts right there at Washington Square Park and runs uptown. Sixth Avenue is a couple of blocks away, so it's a very busy area. The unique thing about Washington Square Park is that you can stand there by the fountain and look right down the street downtown and see at that time both of the towers. All right, so I wasn't living far from there, and when I immediately went outside because I knew I could see the towers from there. That's saw the second plane hit, all right? And, that's something I'll never forget. It was a really hard, because when the second plane hit, we knew it wasn't a horrible accident no more. It was a horrible event that was actually happening live. And we understood not only the significance of the building falling, but all the people that were down there, not only in those two buildings, which was, probably thousands and thousands and thousands of people, but the buildings surrounding it, the streets under it, the subways that ran under it. Imagine being on a subway going under that building when it collapsed. Your car just happened to, the subway car you was on, so it just happened to be under the building when it collapsed. So that's what ran through everybody's mind, like jointly, like it's like everybody who was seeing it. I was overwhelmed, I think everyone was overwhelmed. And at that time I had already accumulated a criminal record, all right? But there's really no doubt in my mind that if I could have joined up with the military, I may very well have joined up. I probably would have, because I was really mad about the whole thing. It really, it really made me angry. And knowing myself back then, thinking how invincible I was and how tough I was and all this other stuff, I have a different point of view now, all right? Now that I'm more experienced and I've been around more than I had back then. I probably would have said, yeah, man, I want to join up with some special elite ass-kicking unit. You know what I mean? I could see it. I could put myself in my shoes at that age and see it. And I probably would have been pretty good at it, because I'm sure I could have passed any kind of endurance course. I'm probably sure I could have got through it and became, but you never really know. People wash out all the time for a million different reasons, But anyway, I could see myself being over there in Afghanistan and Iraq and all these other places doing something that I thought was righteous and right and upright and just, hunting down bad guys that was trying to hurt my fellow citizens, especially on that magnitude. And I saw it. It's like I didn't just see it on TV, which was plenty bad enough, but I saw it live. And I lived in New York City for about 30 years. I consider that place my adopted hometown. I have a lot of really good friends up there, and I miss them. You know what I mean? Like, I love Florida, man, but it's slow motion. But, I signed up for that. And don't get me wrong, I got a few people I pal around with and, go out to a coffee shop now and then, or dinner or whatever, and it's all good, 1,000 things to do as far as kayaking and hiking and camping. So I'm into that because I'm originally from South Carolina. So, I kind of got that in my blood. So there's plenty of things to do, but I lived a different type of life up there, I would classify myself as a punk rocker, skinhead, skater kid. That's, that was kind of my flow. And then things matured from there, and, different roots sprouted, so to speak. I grew up riding motorcycles, so it was kind of a natural progression for me to start riding motorcycles in New York City. It's really the preferred way to get around. You can get through traffic and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? You in a car, sometimes you might get stuck, but you don't really have a lot of traffic jams there, but you do have some now and again. They got it gridded out, so traffic pretty much moves smoothly. But back to the point. I want to formally issue an apology, all right, to all vets, and I was referring to specifically like, special operator types. That's kind of who I zeroed in on when I made the statement. And I'm just going to formally apologize, because if I could have gotten the military at that time, I could see myself signing up, and I know I would have thought that I was doing the right thing. I wouldn't do that nowadays, because I've lost faith in, I haven't lost total faith in the system. It'd be easy for me to take that approach, but, I think I just have to believe, man, that the Constitution still means something. And sooner or later, certain, the courts and certain people is going to step up and say no more. Okay. I don't know if that day will come, but I still have a little bit of hope that maybe the ship can be corrected. I pretty much lost faith in the government. I don't need the government, but with that said, I don't want to get off on that topic, but with that said, I want to issue an apology, man, to all the vets, but especially the guys I zeroed in on. You're not a pig devil. The politicians, I don't take that back. And a lot of people in the deep state, I don't take that back. They're all pig devils, in my opinion, for doing what they do around the world. Because I think there could be a completely different approach called fair trade. I don't care what you do in your country. That's your business. I'm here to do business with you. That's it. You got grain for sale, I'll buy it, and I'll help you build a port. You just do like China does. That's the approach we should be taking. I ain't saying I'm no Chineseman, or I want to be a Chineseman, and I ain't no commie neither. But the moral is, just do fair, good business, and you don't have to go around the world espionaging and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? That's just the way I see it, man. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that. And another thing, man, when you put your face on social media, all right, and the reason why I made that apology, man, because I think that should be a part of any show. If I say something and I rethink it later on, I got no problem recounting it and issuing an apology if appropriate, or clarifying my statement, all right? But back to trolls and all this other stuff. I understand how it's easy to get overwhelmed and angry if people start talking too much junk to you. But on the flip side of the coin, you got to be real, homie. When you put your face on YouTube and then you especially start talking about prison issues and, gang culture, street culture, it's unavoidable that somebody's going to take issue with something you say. That's just unavoidable. And when they start speaking on it or poking at you or whatever, man, you got to let that run off your back like water running off a duck's back, because that's part of the job description. You know what I mean? Everybody may not agree with you on everything you say, and certain people may agree or whatever, but you know what? It's just a part of it. I understand how it's easy to get, upset or angry about it and feel like talking about it on air, man. But hey, I look at it like this. I put my face on YouTube. I'm talking to people. Some people may agree, or some people may disagree, or think I'm good, or think I'm horrible, or whatever, But I just feel it's always important to come real with it. A lot of people mistake real for violence. All right? No, those are not the two same things. Okay? Those are not the two same flows at all. Real means I'm going to be true to myself. Always. I have to be. I'm obligated to do that. And my behavior and my actions are going to be a reflection of who I am on the inside. Certain things I'm not willing to compromise about. That's just the way it's got to be. And that's what being real is all about, man. All right? I got not just one line, I got many, many lines. That don't mean I'm the toughest guy in the world. Not even close to it, nor do I claim to be. I'm not probably even the toughest guy in the town I live in. Who knows? But the moral of the story is that if you was really behind the walls, and I don't doubt that you were, You can probably come across many, many people that were tough as nails, probably never fitted anywhere they had ever been in their life, had it in them to be extremely loyal, all right, but couldn't think their way out of a wet paper bag. So tough and real oftentimes get confused. And I'm not saying they can't go hand in hand. I'm not saying that either. But they're actually two totally different things. Usually when I was around, a lot of tough people had a way of migrating to me, man, because I helped them believe in themselves. I help them become a better person, because if you're going to hang out with me, especially if you're a young person and you're in prison, yeah, you're going to have to read books, all right? You're going to have to do book reports. Not me breathing down your throat, but yo, bro, this is what we about. We got to educate ourselves, okay? We got to know where we stand, and we have to educate ourselves in academics the best we can. You know, we ain't never somebody saying we got to be Einstein, but we still need to be educated, all right? You show people love, man. You show them how to believe in themselves, and that's what elevates your game, and always make it bigger than you, okay? Because look, man, if we could pull this off, not only could I live better, but we could all live better, because we can move together as a team, as a unit, and we're all looking out for one each other, man. Everybody, if I can help you do better, then you can help me do better, all right? And that's the key. I also know that certain types of people, they are more gravitated towards certain types of things. That's the reason why, man, like, if you were, out in the streets doing whatever you was doing and you were really intent on doing that, I ain't trying to talk no sense to you, because you done made your mind up. And, that's you. You're an adult. You know what I mean? Go do you. But, the graveyard's full of tough guys. You know what I mean? Like, there's, millions of them in there. You know what I mean? And nobody remembers their name. So that's not my approach to life at all, man. Anything that I've, ever been associated with in any way, it was about improvement. And sometimes bad things happen, man, in bad places. That's why I highly recommend, if you're a young person and you may be involved in certain things, and maybe you don't really want to be involved in them, but the environment you're in almost kind of facilitates it, you may want to think long and hard, man, about finding somebody else to hang out with, man, because if you cross paths with the wrong law enforcement associations, man, you can find yourself in a real tough spot for decades upon decades, man. There ain't no way to live a life, bro. I've been in there and made it through it. All praise to the big man upstairs. Yeah, I'm a pagan, but I still believe there's a big man upstairs, and I ain't got nothing bad to say about any, prophets or, sons of the Lord or whatever. I don't got nothing bad to say about none of that. My position is, I don't waste my time praying to gods who don't answer my prayers. I don't know if one supreme God is enough for me. You know what I mean? Like, there probably is one supreme God. I don't doubt that. But there may be a lot of goddesses and, other demigods or whatever roaming around who can answer my prayers too. And when I pray about things and concentrate on things, it's all about things. How can we improve things? How can we do better? How can we be more prepared, etc. So that's what I'm all about, man. And, I just come real with it. And I know I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I get it, man. But, it is what it is, man. I ain't gonna talk your ear off no more today. So until next time, stay up. Peace. And Spook told me to tell y'all he sends his regards to.